My name is Russell Lehman, and I am a motivational speaker, a thought leader, and a spoken word poet on mental health, autism, disabilities, and the overall human condition. Inclusion. What does inclusion encompass? How do you create a culture of inclusion? How do you create an environment where not only do you include others, such as people of determination, but how do you help them feel included? How do you help them feel like they belong? And are we even asking in the first place if they want to be included or if they are ready to be included? There have been times in my life where I have been included in certain situations just because I have a disability. Not necessarily because those who included me were sincere about valuing me as a human. How often are we actually prioritizing the people of determination instead of just the term inclusion? Inclusion has become a hollow word as of late. It's almost a trend of sorts, and we focus so much on the end goal of inclusion. We're almost forcing inclusion to the extent of forgetting the necessary steps to take for inclusion to naturally unfold, right? I think in organizations, in nonprofits, in companies, in schools, in education, in health, all areas of life, we really need to step back and think about A, what are our goals as a society or as an entity, as a group? And B, are we actually following up on those goals? Are we actually taking the necessary pragmatic and very practical actions to help us achieve these goals? Or are we just creating goals to become more favorable in the eyes of others with no actual intent to fulfill this goal? It's all about sincerity, of wanting to include others, not feeling like you're having to force the inclusion or that you have to include others out of pity. No, this is about valuing the opportunity that lies within the people of determination in your community, in your country, in your business. My own life story. I dropped out of public school at age 11 and was diagnosed with autism at age 12. I ultimately became a social outcast for the next 13 years. So I've spent almost half of my life very isolated. And I've always wanted to be included. But again, like I said earlier, it almost was worse when I was included, but didn't feel like I was included. And what do I mean by that? Again, it goes back to a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a sense of feeling like people want you to be there. So how do you build a culture of inclusion? Well, it's not from top down or bottom up, but it's rather both, where they meet in the middle. You survey your employees to get their perspective on what they need as employees underneath you. You survey your executive team. Ask them, what are they hearing from their employees, from their departments? What needs have to be addressed? You take a survey. You find the voids within your community, within your organization. And then you don't just fill those voids by including people, right? Almost putting a Band-Aid on the void. But again, you take the natural baby steps for inclusion to unravel naturally. What does inclusion mean to me? Inclusion means that people see the talent I bring to the table, regardless of my disability. Inclusion means that people listen to me, and not just listen, but actually hear me when I'm struggling because of my disabilities. Are people actually taking the time to hear what I'm struggling with, and to not just look at me, but actually see me as an individual. With all the obstacles I encounter on a daily basis that actually have been the impetus behind my talents, because they're one and the same, they're two sides of the same coin. You know, I found my success through the struggle. I developed my talents because of my tribulations in life. When people can not just look at that, but see that, and when people can not just listen to my story, but hear me and my story and my experiences, whether positive or negative, that's inclusion to me. When people let me know that I can confide in them, that if I need anything, they're there for me, that's inclusion. That's inclusion. They're very simple steps, very simple steps. But again, so often we focus on the end goal, inclusion, 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 that we miss sight of all the very simple tasks and steps that need to be taken for, again, inclusion to unfold naturally. It's about being a decent person, about running a very respectable company, organization. It's about doing the right thing. And not just because it's the right thing, but because it will benefit you as an entity. To be able to foster a culture of inclusion is difficult. It's not an easy thing. If you can prove to others that you are capable of fostering within your company, organization, your community, a culture of inclusion, and people actually see that, that's impressive. It takes leadership skills. It takes taking risks. You're going to make mistakes, and you have to be okay with that. You're not going to get it right the first time, the second time, the third time, the 10th time. But eventually, due to our individual mistakes along the way, we can reflect in hindsight as a community and move forward together. Because look, when we're talking about inclusion in different areas, there's people over here working on inclusion, there's people over here working on inclusion, there's people over there working on inclusion, there's people back there working on inclusion, right? Well, if we keep doing this, if we keep having that mindset of inclusion in different silos, what's going to happen? These inclusive bubbles are going to start bumping into each other, because inclusion is a relative term. What inclusion means to me does not necessarily define inclusion for another individual. So if we keep having these inclusion silos, so to speak, they're going to start bumping into each other and create friction. What we need to do is, as a community, as a people, as a society, as a country, come together and realize that inclusion of all people matter. And too often, people of determination are left out of that discussion. And when they are talked about, they're talked about as if they are not in the room, or as if they're only being included because you're doing a nice thing. Not recognizing that the lived experience of having a disability is rich with insight and passion and lessons. That's a gold mine for any organization. To have that lived experience, a battle-tested warrior, bring that insight and that skill set of tenacity, of resiliency, of perseverance, of compassion into your work, that's going to benefit you more than anybody else. So inclusion is not about including people just so they feel better. Inclusion is actually about making your company better, about making your organization better, about building a sturdier foundation for your ideals moving forward with your mission to rest upon. That is inclusion. So ask yourself, what are you doing in terms of creating an inclusive environment, a culture of inclusion? Are you focusing solely on the end goal? Or are you taking a step back and evaluating what you as a whole together can do to create the environment where inclusion unfolds naturally, where you don't have to try to include people. People are just included because they're people. Right? Let's put the human back in humanity and realize that no matter what somebody's been through or what challenges they may be dealt in life, They have something to offer, but you have to take the time to look at them. And again, not just look at them, but see them and take the time to listen to them. But again, not just listen to them, but hear them in order to truly understand what they bring to the table. And in turn, how they can benefit you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I hope my words resonated on some level, and I'm being sincere when I say the disability community, people of determination, it's a gold mine. It is a gold mine of insight and just wisdom that gives us all a broader perspective on what the human condition may consist of. Tap into it. Tap into it. See the value in these individuals because they bring a heck of a lot to the table. Thank you.